Today, we are going to look at a strange group of birds. This is the order Nyctibiiformes, which contain the Potoos. Known for their cryptic coloration and large eyes, they are very odd-looking birds. Potoos are in the class Aves, a group more commonly known as the birds. This is likely not surprising, as I have already shown you a picture of them, but perhaps more surprising are some of their closest relatives. So, let's have a quick look. I am not going to look at the entire phylogeny of birds in this video, so we will start by zooming in on the clade containing the Potoos. For the sake of simplicity, we will place all other birds aside. The first group in this clade is the order Caprimulgiformes, or the Nightjars. This is not too surprising, as Nightjars have very similar cryptic coloration to the Potoos, with a brown base colour, but interspersed with spots of varying shades of white, grey, brown, and black. Their posture is the polar opposite of the Potoo, however. Nightjars hold themselves horizontally, so that they can blend in on the ground or when perching on branches. This contrasts sharply with the much more vertical Potoos, which are specialised for blending in when standing atop tree stumps. The closest relative of Nightjars is indeed the birds we are looking at today, the Potoos in the order Nyctibiiformes. Because of the way phylogenies work, these may be the closest relatives of the nightjar, but nightjars are not actually the closest relatives of the Potoo. In a phylogeny like this, everything further down it are more closely related to each other than any of them are to earlier branches. In this case, it means Potoos are more closely related to the next groups I will mention than they are to nightjars. The closest relative of the Potoos is the order Steatornithiformes, which only has one living species, the Oilbird. This is a fascinating bird that may get its own video one day, as it is one of few birds to be able to use echolocation, and it is one of only 2 nocturnal birds to feed on fruit, and the only one that can fly. The kakapo of New Zealand is the other one, but it cannot fly. My very first video on this channel was about kakapo if you are interested in those. The next order is Podargidae, or the Frogmouths. These birds from Australia and New Guinea share many similarities to Potoos. Their coloration, their upright posture, and their large mouths, from which they get their common name, all make them very reminiscent of Potoos. The Owlet-Nightjars in the order Aegotheliformes, aside from having a rather unimaginative name, are also found in New Guinea and Australia, as well as some other nearby islands like New Caledonia and the Maluku Islands in Indonesia. In contrast to the strictly nocturnal species we have been looking at, the Owlet-Nightjars are crepuscular, meaning that they are most active at dawn and dusk. Finally, we get to the most surprising addition to this clade, the order Apodiformes, containing the swifts and hummingbirds. While the other orders I have mentioned all look similar enough to each other, it is not really surprising that they are closely related. The swifts and hummingbirds are markedly different. The Apodiformes are one of the most diverse orders of bird after the passerines, as it contains around 450 different species. Many are known for their excellent flying abilities at the cost of their ability to walk, with extremely unique adaptations, such as the hummingbird's ability to hover in midair and the swift's speed, with some able to reach speeds of up to 169 km per hour or 105 miles per hour. The main similarity to their closest relative, the Owlet-Nightjar, is the shape of their skull, which is not easy to notice unless you can see their skeletons. It is time to return to the subject of today's video, the Potoos. Potoos are found in South and Central America. There are 7 living species, divided across 2 genera. They are known for standing on a high tree stump or vertical branch, which allows them to use their cryptic coloration to blend in and make them appear as part of the tree. As well as their coloration, they use a behaviour known as masquerading to help them with this. This is where they use their posture to mimic that they are an extension of the branch or stump where they are perched. Depending on the species, this can involve swaying backwards and forwards to mimic a leaf, or, as you can see in this image, contorting their head into an odd posture so their beak looks like a protruding twig or part of the branch. They will also choose stumps and branches that are roughly the same diameter as their own bodies to make it easier to blend in, and will also adjust the angle they perch at to further enhance this camouflage. They have several highly distinctive features aside from their behaviour. They have massive eyes, and in fact the great Potoo has the largest eye-to-body ratio of any bird in the world. Their eyes are about twice the size of a human's and give them excellent vision at night. This is important as it allows them to pinpoint flying insects with eerie accuracy, letting them swoop down to seize them from out of the air. Their other distinctive feature is their large gaping mouth. These can stretch surprisingly wide and allows them to swallow prey whole. Despite looking similar to nightjars, nightjars have bristles around their mouth, while Potoos do not. The two actually used to be grouped together in the same order, but as you would have seen in the phylogeny I went through, this is no longer the case and they are recognized as separate orders. There are many legends from native people throughout South and Central America about the Potoo, likely due to their very distinctive calls, and this has led to local names like Mai de Lua, or the Mother of the Moon, and Urutau, or the Ghost Bird. Many of these are specifically about the great Potoo, which is much larger than the other species of Potoo, and also has a more haunting cry. For context, here is a snippet of vocalizations from the great Potoo. The Shuar people of Ecuador and Peru have a legend that the Potoo embodies the spirit of a woman who angered her husband. When she tried to apologize, he flew high into the sky and transformed into the moon. The woman attempted to fly after him but fell back to earth, transforming into a bird. According to this legend, the Potoo's calls of this woman staying up all night to cry over her lost love. There are many stories like this from different groups of people, all explaining the distinctive cries of the Potoo. Some claim that it was a baby abandoned by its mother and left to die, while another legend claims that it was a young girl whose father killed her love out of jealousy. Whatever the legend, its call inspires stories about loss and grief, and listening to it, it is clear to see why, as it does sound mournful, and also is highly distinctive from other bird calls. As fascinating as I find cultures and stories, it is time to return to the scientific information. There are two genera of Potoo, although the first one we will be looking at only has one species in it. This is Phyllaemulor. All Potoos used to be grouped into a single genus, but genetic studies prove that the Rufous Potoo diverged long before the other Potoos. This led to Phyllaemulor being described in 2018 by Costa et al., with the Rufous Potoo being its only species. Given that it only contains one species, and that was identified from genetics, it is hard to describe exactly what characteristics sets Phyllaemulor apart from the other genus of Potoos. Since that is the case, let us start with looking at the Rufous Potoo, Phyllaemulor bracteatus. It is the smallest living Potoo, being 21 to 25 centimeters long, or 8.3 to 9.8 inches, and it weighs 46 to 58 grams, or 1.6 to 2 ounces. It is found in the Amazon rainforest, being known in parts of Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, French Guiana, Suriname, Peru, and Venezuela. The Rufous Potoo does look quite different to other Potoos. As the name suggests, it is a very rufous colour, unlike the grey seen on most of the other species. It also has white spots, and seems to be cryptically coloured to resemble a dead leaf. To enhance this camouflage, it has a very upright posture and sways gently when it is perched on a branch to simulate a leaf swaying in the breeze. The IUCN classifies the Rufous Potoo as least concern. This is despite its population size being unknown, but believed to be declining. It is given the least concern rating due to its large range, and while it is declining, it is not believed to be a drastic enough decline to increase its threat rating. Rufous Potoos are insectivores, sallying from its perch to catch an insect and then returning to the same perch. While very few Rufous Potoo nests are known, those that have been discovered are highly unusual. They lay a single, speckled egg on top of a broken tree stump, which, as you will see when we cover more of the Potoos, is common for this order, but is highly unusual when compared to the nests of other birds. All other living Potoos are in the genus Nyctibius. The type species of this genus is the great Potoo, Nyctibius grandis. This is the largest Potoo species, reaching lengths of up to 60 centimeters long or 24 inches, and weighs up to 650 grams or 23 ounces. It is widely distributed throughout Central and South America, from southern Mexico to Bolivia. Despite this large range, it has no subspecies, and seems to have little to no variation in plumage or size across this range. It prefers lowland forests, forest edges, and clearings. It can be found up to 1,500 meters above sea level, but does prefer more lowland environments. It perches on tree stumps, and is often overlooked because its coloration and behaviors make it appear as part of the stump. It is a speckled grey and white colour, and its posture when perching is upright, so it prefers to perch on vertical surfaces such as stumps or posts to help with this camouflage. Great Potoos are typically shy but can be found fairly easily at night due to their distinctive red eye shine when illuminated with a flashlight. They will typically find a suitable perch and then will sally forth to catch their flying prey, before returning to the same perch to repeat the process. This is an action known as hawking or sallying. They eat larger insects like beetles and grasshoppers, but will occasionally eat flying vertebrates like bats and birds as well. Great Potoos seem to find favourite perches in their range, with the same individual returning to the same perch over multiple nights. Adult great Potoos have no predators, but their eggs and chicks can be eaten by a variety of predators such as monkeys, mustelids or falcons. While great Potoos typically breed between February and August, individuals in parts of their range can be found breeding at most times of the year. The nest is formed in a small indentation in a large tree branch, at least 10 meters above the ground. They lay a single white egg. Little is known about the incubation behavior of great Potoos, but the young hatch after about a month. The nest is cared for by a single adult, but since male and female great Potoos look virtually identical, it is unknown which gender cares for it. 5 weeks after hatching, the fledgling looks very similar to the adult, but is slightly paler and only 2/3 the size. They fledge for about 2 months, after which they leave the nest and become fully independent. Great Potoos are considered least concern by the IUCN. They have a very large distribution and still have a large population, especially in undisturbed parts of their range. The only major threat to them is habitat loss from deforestation within their range. They are occasionally hunted by indigenous people, but this only has a very minor impact on their populations. They are not hunted very often, as they can be difficult to find and do not contain much meat. Their feathers and body parts do have cultural significance, as they are sometimes used in ceremonies and are believed to provide chastity and protect the wearer from seduction. The long-tailed Potoo, Nyctibius aethereus, gets its name from its tail that is significantly longer than is seen in other Potoos. The long-tailed Potoo is 42 to 58 cm long, or 17 to 23 inches, and weighs up to 447 grams or 15.8 ounces. Its plumage is mostly tawny brown with black, darker brown, and white streaks. There are 3 subspecies, although one of them is sometimes argued that it should be a separate species. This is not commonly accepted currently, so I've left it as a subspecies of the long-tailed Potoo. While its distribution is a little patchy, long-tailed Potoos can be found in every South American country except Chile and Uruguay. It lives in dense tropical forests, but seems to have no preference in humidity, being found in areas with both drier and very wet areas. 2 of the subspecies are only found at very low elevations, never being found above 700 meters or 2,460 feet above sea level. The 3rd subspecies can still be found in the lowland areas, but can also be found at much higher elevations, being found up to 1,200 meters or 3,900 feet above sea level. It feeds on insects like termites, moths, and beetles, sallying forth to catch them in short motions that have been described as clumsy and oversized. Like other Potoos, they rest during the day on dead stubs or branches up to 20 meters or 66 feet above the ground. If it senses danger, it will stretch its body vertically and freeze to try and enhance its camouflage. It is uncertain when its breeding season is, but it does seem to vary based on its location. Nests have been reported as active in August to November in Paraguay or July to September in French Guiana. Their nest is a depression on top of a stump or branch and is not decorated like a conventional nest. They are rated least concern by the IUCN, and similar to the other species, this is due to their large range. One subspecies has a very large range, but it is worth noting that the other 2 are only found in small areas, so may be more susceptible to habitat loss and fragmentation. The Andean Potoo, Nyctibius maculosus, used to be considered a subspecies of the white-winged Potoo, as they both have white patches on their wings. However, differences in size, vocalizations, and elevational preferences distinguish them enough to have separated them out into their own species. They are 34 to 40.5 centimeters or 13 to 16 inches long, with white wing coverts, with white, buff, tawny, and black streaks and spots on most of their body. Their face is a much darker color, making their large yellow eyes stand out a lot more. Its patchy distribution is due to being found in the higher parts of the Andes, with preferred elevations between 1,800 to 2,800 meters or 5,900 to 9,200 feet above sea level. A few have been found higher or lower than this, but this is typically the preferred elevations. It is unknown whether the distribution shown is a true distribution, or if it could be found in areas between these patches. This is still a possibility, as the Andean Potoo is a hard-to-spot nocturnal bird found in remote areas. They are considered least concern, despite their fairly small and possibly patchy range. Their population size has not been estimated, although it is seen rarely or very rarely. Again, this is believed to be an underestimation, as they are cryptic, nocturnal, and live in remote areas. While they might be affected by habitat loss, they are somewhat tolerant of disturbed areas, as they have been found in areas with selective logging. The closest relative of the Andean Potoo is the white-winged Potoo, Nyctibius leucopterus. There are two variants of the white-winged Potoo that look identical to each other, but have noticeably different sizes. There has been discussions about whether these forms are subspecies, or possibly even different species, but currently they are still grouped together under a single species, the white-winged Potoo, which has no subspecies. Unsurprisingly, their common name comes from the large white patch on their wings. The Amazonian form is the much more well-known form of the two. It is much smaller, being around 24 centimeters or 9 inches long, and weighing 80 grams or 3 ounces. The eastern form can get up to 29 centimeters or 11 inches long, but its weight has not been documented. The Amazonian form has a much larger distribution, being found in the Amazon basin of Venezuela, Peru, the Guianas, and northern Brazil. The eastern form is only found in a small area along the eastern coast, not connected to the rest of its range, in the Brazilian states of Bahia and Espírito Santo. Many of their known behaviors are similar to those of other Potoo. They use saline to hunt their insect prey and are camouflaged and prefer roosting on stumps or vertical branches. Nothing is known about their breeding habits, but it is assumed they lay a single egg on a high branch like the other Potoos do. The white-winged Potoo is considered least concerned by the IUCN due to their large range. Their population size is unknown, but it is assumed to be decreasing, if not drastically enough to increase their threat rating. Deforestation of undisturbed rainforest is the largest threat to them. The common Potoo, Nyctibius griseus, is also sometimes known as the palmy ones due to its call. Its call is very distinctive and sounds like this. As you can hear, it does sound a little similar to palmy ones, and it drops in pitch and volume as it repeats. It is found throughout much of Central and South America, and is found in every South American country except Chile. It prefers open woodlands and savannas, avoiding both cooler alpine terrain and drier regions. It is rarely found above 1900 meters or 6200 feet, which is likely why it is not typically found in Chile, as much of that country is bordered by the Andes mountain range. Occasionally, a vagrant common Potoo is observed in Chile, however. Like all Potoos, it uses masquerading to mimic the perch it sits on, but the common Potoo is more studied than most other species, so more is known about this behavior in them. They select branches and stumps that are roughly the diameter of their body to perch on to help with camouflage, if needed. When they are alert for danger, they will freeze with their beak up and eyes closed to mimic a branch. They can still see with their eyes closed, however, through slits in their eyelids, so will carefully watch to see if the danger continues to approach. While this is their favourite form of defence, they do have some other tactics they may try when threatened. If disturbed by larger animals, such as marmosets, they may break their camouflage and attempt to chase the intruder away. Their behaviour to humans can be quite varied. Sometimes they will attempt to maintain their camouflage, even if being directly touched. However, they may also attempt to quickly fly away, or may attempt to intimidate them by opening their beak as wide as it can go, which, as was mentioned earlier, is impressively wide in these birds. More is also known about the breeding behaviours of common Potoos, compared to the other species in this order. They choose a stump or branch with a depression in it in which to lay their egg, typically 3 to 15 metres or 10 to 50 feet above the ground. They do not place any materials in this depression to decorate or insulate the area, unlike a traditional bird nest, but they will lay a single egg into this depression. The egg is white with lilac spots. Common Potoos are monogamous, and both genders equally share the duties of incubating the egg and raising the young. While one incubates the egg, the other will go foraging for food. When they return, they swap roles so their mate can get something to eat. The egg hatches after 33 days, and the young have an egg tooth to help them break open their egg. Parents gradually decrease their time in the nests as the young matures. Initially, the chick is fed by the parents regurgitating food, but as the parents begin to spend more time away, the chick spends its time preening itself and gleaning insects from nearby foliage to feed itself. At about 14 days old, the chick starts learning how to fly. It ventures out on several exploratory flights with its parents, before leaving the nest for good at around 25 days old. Common Potoos are considered least concerned by the IUCN. They have a very large range, and the wild population is estimated to have at least 500,000 mature individuals, so the species is not at any immediate risk. It is assumed to be slowly declining, however, due to deforestation. The northern Potoo, Nyctibius jamaicensis, used to be considered a subspecies of the common Potoo. They look virtually identical, but were separated into different species by the American Ornithological Society in 1995 due to their notably different vocalizations. It now has 5 subspecies of its own recognized. It is found in Central America and on some of the islands in the Caribbean, including, as might be guessed from their scientific name, Jamaica. It is 38 to 46 centimeters or 15 to 18 inches long, with a long tail and wings. Its vocalizations are more hoarse and guttural than the other Potoo species, sounding like this. As you can probably tell, this is markedly different from the mournful calls of the common and great Potoos that I played earlier. Since their appearance and behaviours are so similar to the common Potoo, going into their other information would just be repeating myself at this point. They are also rated as least concern due to their large range, and it is estimated that there are more than 50,000 mature individuals left in the wild. I hope you enjoyed this video. Potoos are amazing birds that many people have never heard of. Their nocturnal habits, cryptic coloration, and masquerading behaviours have likely contributed to this, although their odd appearance can lead to some intriguing pictures. It is also nice to talk about a group of animals not immediately threatened with extinction, although the ongoing deforestation in South America remains a problem for many creatures there, including the Potoos. Thank you for listening, and feel free to suggest another group of animals you want to see me cover in the comments.